So I'm here with Joe Weinman, who's Senior VP of Telx. And Joe, you're also the author of a book which is well reputed, Cloudonomics. You're one of the first people to really do some thinking around the business impact of cloud. So it's particularly relevant this evening to have you talking to us a little bit about what you see is going on. And obviously a lot of the findings this evening were led with the theme of business driving cloud. So what was your take on that? And then let's go from there.
Well, first of all, I completely resonate with the findings, and I love the work that you guys do because it's a mix not just of the survey, but also sort of deeper insights into trends. And I think, I've certainly always taken the perspective that technology is fascinating and technology, can be transformational, but ultimately none of it matters unless it has a deep impact on the business, because there are only so many priorities that C-level executives can really focus on. So that's the take that you have to have for any prioritization of this.
But you were one of the first people to really think through the economics of this, and as we talked about this evening, there's some real challenges here for people to actually make this work at scale. And some of my startups would say that as they get to scale, it doesn't actually work for them to use public cloud. They're better off actually reverse bursting and building their own scale. What's the tipping point at which they take advantage of private cloud versus just doing everything in the public cloud? And you've done some deep thinking around that. That was part of your book. Can you give us a sense of what are some of the key factors that people should be thinking about?
There's a range of factors that range from behavioral economic issues, such as the endowment effect, where people put special value on things that they already own, like data centers, to some special value that people place on things that are free, and so they'll take advantage of free goods even if they're actually economically less attractive than goods that you would pay for. So that's one example, but there's also some hard quantitative numbers that you can look at, and ultimately they relate to the unit cost of compute and storage resources and how those are different in an ownership model versus in a public service provider model. There's lots of balancing factors either way. For example, economies of scale, volume discounts, the fact that commercial providers need to add in assorted things like sales, general, and administrative elements to their cost structure. But ultimately, what it all boils down to is that hybrids are the optimal strategy for just about anyone, especially if there's any sort of baseline demand that is coupled with a variable component on top of that, which tends to be most providers. And so you end up with the notion that hybrids are not just some interim transitional state until everyone magically moves to 100% public cloud, but they're a natural component of a strategy that includes a substantial fraction that's private cloud resources due to legacy systems and data gravity constraints, as well as public cloud, obviously, for its elasticity and therefore its total cost advantages in the face of variable demand.
Now, I know anybody in this audience is going to have the same question about this, which is hybrid really just an excuse for people not making the move to really taking advantage of cloud fully?
I don't think so, because again, if you look at other segments, not computing, that have been around for a while, people use a mix of both. And so people own their own cars, yet they still rent them. They own their own homes or apartments, and yet they also stay in hotels. And so they intuitively determine an economic balance. And so I think, drawing those analogies, obviously every sphere of industry is a little bit different, and in computing you have issues again such as data migration that make it harder to
data sovereignty
data sovereignty, exactly. And so all of those things ultimately say that there are going to be solutions that are best provided through the cloud, particularly SaaS solutions. There are those that are going to be best offered on your own resources, assuming that you can achieve some minimal operating scale that is relevant, and you're going to have a balance of those. And by the way, people talk about hybrids as if there's only one thing, but there's actually
there's many models for it.
Probably 10 or more, right? Including time-based, where you're in your own private and then you migrate to the cloud, you're in the public cloud, and then you migrate back to private. Things where important commercial transactions are done within your own legacy systems, but then you do things like online catalogs and shopping carts, out in the cloud. So that's a whole other long discussion.
Yeah, well, you actually, I think, put it very concisely in your book, if I remember rightly. You also give some pretty clear examples about people being able to think through the economics of that too.
Yes.
So thanks for the book, and
thanks for your great annual survey.
Pleasure. So as we look to tomorrow, and I know you're going to be hosting Structure, what are you looking forward to over the next couple of days?
Well, Structure really was the first event, I think, to kind of capture the cloud in its early stages back in 2008. And every year I'm just amazed by people who think through new things. And the latest thing that I'm really excited about is back in 2007, I predicted a number of things, including dynamic pricing for cloud services, as well as brokerages and exchanges and derivatives.
Yeah, you were very prescient.
And we're actually now starting to see some of that come to the fore. So you're seeing financial intermediaries, you're seeing exchanges beginning to arise.
Yeah, we have two of them downstairs, actually.
Yeah, exactly. They're here at the dinner. So I think that is really exciting, is the notion that cloud is moving from just being this nifty technology that is kind of the next stage somehow in virtualization or is in its infancy into a mature industry. And with that mature industry comes this entire ecosystem of participants that is playing all of these different roles that really make a mature industry actually occur. And I think you call it out in your survey with kind of all the different elements that are coming together, including big data and mobility and the cloud, and how all of that's coming together to create a seamless or borderless, set of infrastructure that really can be used for business purposes, as opposed to here's a nifty new technology and we got some funding and we're going to go play with it for a while.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, it should be a fun couple of days. Great to see you this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care.
Pleasure.